Hello and welcome to Dining with Death. This episode is on my playlist, Deadly Destinations, where we visit the sites of terrible events. Today I'm coming to you from San Diego, California, where a serial killer stalked the area. Before we begin, hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me, and of course you can always join my Patreon. We have a big goal there, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video. Come on a little tour of San Diego with us, and of course we're going to eat here. I'm Stacy Lee. Let's begin.
Welcome to San Diego, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Of the parts of the world I have seen, Austin is still probably my favorite city, and until recently, San Francisco was second, but San Francisco has some major issues. I don't feel safe there anymore, and I'm really disappointed in the people that run that fabulous, historic, and incredible city. They've let things get so far out of hand that the city is now a mess. It's tragic. So San Diego has moved up to my number 2 spot. This city is absolutely everything. Jason and I have a really good friend that he met while working in sales in North Dakota during the oil boom. Our friend, Freddie, is from Philadelphia and he travels for work. He has lived in many cities and he recently made San Diego his permanent home. Because of all the cities he's lived in, it's his favorite. If you've seen it and been here, you know. And if you haven't, let me show you around. First off, the weather here is about as perfect as it gets. It's almost like Hawaii. The average temperature here is about 72 degrees all year round. It only gets down to about 50 in the dead of winter. There's a very low humidity. So in some ways, it's even better than Hawaii. And it doesn't rain here like it does in Florida. It doesn't have the Florida Austin humidity. Like I said, it's pretty perfect. The vibe is just immaculate. The people are laid back and friendly, and everywhere you go, there's just good energy. This is an old city by American standards and has a lot of fabulous history. Explorer Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo is said to have been the first European to discover this area in about 1542, but native people have been living here for about 12,000 years. The first inhabitants of the region were the people of La Jolla, also called the Shell Midden people. Then other groups migrated from the east and settled in this area. The Kumeyaay people were the last to settle here. In 1769, Gaspar de Portola and his expedition founded the military post known as the Presidio of San Diego, and later that year, the first mission was established here, the Mission San Diego de Alcala. Colonists began arriving in 1774, and soon there was a rebellion by the Kumeyaay because their land was being invaded. San Diego was very much the Wild West at this time, and there was a lot of conflict and fighting. There was also a lot of death. In 1821, Mexico ousted the Spanish and created the province of Alta California, and soon after that, the town of San Diego was established. The original town was located at the foot of Presidio Hill, which is now the beautiful Old Town San Diego State Historic Park. California became part of the United States in 1848 and was admitted to the Union in 1850. From the 1910s to the 1970s, San Diego was America's largest tuna fishing port, and fishing and canning factories dominated the area. Van de Kamp Seafood, Bumblebee, and Starkist are all based in San Diego. Portuguese and Japanese immigrants flocked to the area to make money in this industry, and they brought with them a lot of experience and knowledge. At the height of this era in the fishing industry, Japanese workers made up more than 80% of the employees. The tuna fishing boats from that industry were actually used in World War II for delivering food, fuel, and supplies overseas. The tuna industry still exists here in San Diego, but it is smaller than it once was. In the 1920s, America began to discover what a beautiful area San Diego is, and tourism quickly became a large part of the industry here. The beautiful beaches and Balboa Park began to draw people to this area, and then theme parks began to pop up. SeaWorld opened in 1964, and the world-famous San Diego Zoo opened in 1972. Those attractions bring in millions each year, and they're a large part of the area economy. Legoland opened in 1999 and added to the theme park choices. There are aquariums and museums and lots of water parks as well. San Diego is simply stunning. The culture here is a beautiful mix of Asian, Hispanic, Latino, and American. You can get some of the most incredible food in the world here, and I'm going to show you that a little later on. Of course, San Diego is home to one of the most fabulous hotels in the world, Hotel del Coronado, and I posted our visit there a few weeks ago. That video is on my playlist, Dining with the Deceased, where we visit places that are supposedly haunted. If you haven't seen that episode, go take a tour of that grand old hotel with us. It's fabulous. There's so much to see and do here. There are professional sports, there are beautiful state parks, and the San Diego beaches are simply gorgeous. But as is always the case, no matter how beautiful or peaceful or expensive a city is, there is always a dark side, and San Diego is no different. It has its fair share of crime, although this city does a much better job of dealing with it than San Francisco. And not long ago, this magnificent city was the stalking ground for a serial killer. On January 12, 1990, 20-year-old Tiffany Paige Schultz was found murdered in her apartment complex next to Buena Vista Gardens. She had been suntanning at the pool earlier in the day and had spoken with some nearby neighbors. Tiffany didn't know someone had been watching her, a muscular black man who went to the manager's office and asked for a wire hanger to get into his car. He didn't use it on his car. Initially, Tiffany's boyfriend was arrested, but he was, fortunately, released 3 days later, partially because neighbors said they'd heard a struggle around 1 p.m. He was at work at 1 p.m. Tiffany's roommate found her dead later that day. She had been stabbed over 40 times, but she had not been assaulted. About a month later, on February 16, 1990, Janine Marie Weinhold was found murdered, again in an apartment complex near Buena Vista Gardens. The second murder raised some eyebrows. Police had 2 dead women with some similarities in the manner they were killed, and they lived very close to each other. Janine was a college student and had a bright future ahead of her. Again, a neighbor reported seeing a muscular black man sitting on the steps near Janine's apartment. Janine had also been stabbed multiple times, and Janine had been assaulted. Investigators were able to get a semen sample, and they sent it off for DNA testing, which was very new at the time. In March, a woman reported that she was followed by a muscular black man. He was waiting for a bus at the bus stop, and as this woman walked towards her apartment, she saw that the man was following her, and he followed her all the way home. She took off on a dead run, ran to her apartment, and locked herself inside, and then the man left. This woman was most likely very, very lucky. On April 3, 1990, Holly Suzanne Tarr was visiting her brother who lived in the Buena Vista apartments. Holly was a bright young musician who had recently won a scholarship to pay her way through college. Holly and her friend named Tammy traveled from the Midwest to California for spring break to see Holly's brother who lived in San Diego. One morning during their visit, they played tennis, and then they went to lay by the pool. They saw a muscular black man lifting weights. Holly got out of the pool to go to the apartment and take a shower. Tammy stayed behind for about 10 minutes. As Tammy walked towards the apartment, she could hear Holly screaming. Tammy banged on the door, but Holly didn't open it. So Tammy ran to get a neighbor who called the maintenance manager, and he used a master key to get into the apartment. As he broke the chain on the door and kicked the door in, a black man holding a knife ran from the main room, falling as he did. He managed to get out the window and disappear. Holly was still alive but died before the ambulance could get to her. Her killer had taken an opal ring from her finger, and police were able to lift prints at the scene. Police checked the sign-in sheet at the gym pool area of the apartments. Holly and Tammy's names were on that list, along with another, C. Prince. This is Cleophas Prince Jr. The police located him after Holly's murder and questioned him. Cleophas claimed he did work out, but then got ready for work and left the area. He wouldn't let police fingerprint him, and they didn't have enough evidence to arrest him, so police had to let Cleophas go. And as soon as they did, he moved out of the Buena Vista apartments. Weeks later, on May 21st, 1990, Alyssa Naomi Keller was murdered in her East San Diego apartment. Elisa lived with her 18-year-old daughter, who was away that day. When Elisa failed to show up for work, her daughter went to check on her and found her murdered. Elisa had also been stabbed multiple times, and she had been beaten as well. Again, there were fingerprints and some shoe prints the police had seen at other murder scenes. Elisa was also missing a ring with a gold nugget embedded in it. 42-year-old Pamela Gail Clark was murdered on September 13, 1990, along with her daughter, Amber, who was 18. Pamela was found by a neighbor who ran out and called the police. When the police arrived, they found Amber in the back bedroom. Amber and Pamela were both stabbed to death, and money had been taken from Pamela's purse. Her wedding ring was also missing. Police continued to look into Cleophas Prince Jr. The press began calling him the Claremont Killer, named after the Claremont neighborhood in San Diego where the murders took place. Police learned that Cleophas drove a bluish-gray car and that the vehicle had been seen at the Buena Vista Apartments and the Family Fitness Center on Miramar in San Diego. The cops asked the employees at Family Fitness Center to call them the next time they saw Cleophas' car, and in February of 1991, they got the call. Cleophas Prince was just sitting in the parking lot in his car, watching people come and go. Police got to the scene and knocked on the window of Cleophas' car. He tried to tell the police he was waiting for someone, but police didn't buy it. They took him out of the car and searched it. Cleophas didn't even have a membership to the gym anymore, so he had no reason to be in the parking lot. Members reported to police that they saw him sitting in the parking lot several times a week. This killer was hunting, he was stalking, and he was waiting for the chance to take his next victim. The police took Cleophas into custody for loitering, and they were able to get his blood and his fingerprints at that time, but they didn't have enough to arrest him. They had to let him go for a second time, and when they did, Cleophas immediately left California and headed to his mother's house in Birmingham, Alabama. The samples taken from Cleophas and from the crime scenes were sent off for testing. Soon, police learned that the semen found on Janine Weinhold matched Cleophas' DNA. That's when cops found out he had left the state. Police searched his last San Diego apartment, which was still occupied by Cleophas' roommates, and there they found the opal ring taken from Holly Tarr's finger. Police found out that only 60 or so of those rings had been made, and they were made in the Midwest, where Holly was from. In Alabama, Cleophas got into trouble for stealing from a cash register. That's when Alabama police found out he was a suspect for rape and murder in California. His parole officer contacted Cleophas and told him to come into the station, and he did, stating he was innocent and willing to cooperate. Police in Alabama gathered Cleophas' sneakers, and those matched prints found in the blood of the California victims. Then they found the gold nugget ring that belonged to Elisa Keller. Cleophas Prince Jr. was arrested and put on trial. They brought in the OG granddaddy John Douglas to write a profile of Cleophas, which he did. In March of 1992, the trial began. The defense argued Cleophas should be released due to lack of evidence, but the jury didn't buy it. On July 15, 1993, Cleophas Prince Jr. was found guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder, along with 21 additional felony charges. The jury delivered a sentence of death. Cleophas has spent the majority of his life on death row. He currently sits at San Quentin State Prison. He has appealed his death sentence, stating that his trial had so much media coverage, the jury pool was tainted. The Supreme Court denied his appeal based on that claim in 2007. This is a man who fortunately was caught when he was only 23 years old. He is a dangerous, sick monster, and there is no doubt he would have gone on to kill many more. As we always do on this playlist, we eat in our deadly destination. This is Dining with Death. It's a dark travel show where we explore the connection between two of the very few things we all have in common. We all eat and we all die. We had some great meals during our trip to San Diego. The first was in Seaport Village near our hotel. We had the lobster roll and a sweet corn ravioli dish, along with some wonderful sourdough bread as we sat overlooking the ships docked in the bay. The shrimp cocktail was also delicious, and so were the drinks. Fresh seafood is something we don't get in the desert, so whenever we can get our hands on it, that's what we're eating. Seaport Village is such a beautiful place. If you ever visit San Diego, make sure you don't miss this spot. It's a little food and shopping area housed in old little structures. There's lots of history here and even a carousel that was moved here many years ago. This carousel has actually had several homes, and this is its current home. There's ice cream shops and candy stores and even a toy store for the kids. There's a famous kite shop that has been here for decades. I called my parents from here and said, "Didn't we buy a kite here at some point when I was a kid?" And my dad said, "Yep, that was the best kite we ever owned." We walked along the path next to the ocean and enjoyed the cool summer air. You know, I have a personal rule that whenever I see a Zoltar machine, I have to get my fortune, so of course I did. There's pedicabs to take you around the bay and the village. There are ponds to feed the ducks and the fish, and they've got it all lit up so beautifully. There's a courtyard where they often have corporate events and even weddings sometimes. It's really beautiful here. I love these colorful lanterns that are always strung here over the courtyard. They're so festive and add such a nice little pop of color, especially at night. Like I say, Seaport Village is a must if you're ever here. The next day, we ate at Blue Water Seafood Market and Grill. The wait was almost an hour, but I'm so glad we stuck it out. This was some of the most delicious, freshest seafood I have ever eaten. Jason ordered cioppino, which is one of his favorites, and I got this ahi sashimi. Honestly, I think this is the best ahi I've ever had. It was so clean and fresh tasting and firm, and it just melted in my mouth. Of course, we had to get the oysters. Even though I don't normally eat oysters in the summertime, I had just a couple. But the ahi was really the star of the show for us. You can just see how incredibly fresh and firm this fish is, can't you? I've said this before, if I had to pick 5 foods to eat every day for the rest of my life, ahi sashimi would be on that list. It was so good. We sat out on the little patio and really enjoyed this meal. We ordered clam chowder and fish tacos and just tried as much as we could possibly get down. Look at the cases of fresh seafood inside the market area of this restaurant. What I wouldn't give to have access to these kinds of ingredients in my town. This place was absolutely incredible. It's been here for decades, and it's a must-try if you're in the area. San Diego is simply dreamy. There is no place like it on earth. The beaches, the restaurants, and the people are wonderful, and I can see why so many choose to make it their home. Sadly, no matter how wonderful a place or the people are, there will always be evil lurking, and I, for one, am very grateful that Cleophas Prince Jr., the Claremont killer, was captured so many years ago. San Diego is definitely a much safer place with him locked away forever.
Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, Deadly Destinations. Hit the like button if you liked the video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me, and you can always join my Patreon. That helps keep the channel alive, and in the end, we have a big goal of raising money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that cannot be tested because there's no money to test it. We want to help with that. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other, and I'll see you next time on Dining with Death. Bye.